William John Nash, known as Willie to his family, was born in Banstead in the spring of 1897. His dad wasn't local. He'd come down from Hertfordshire in the 1890s, and he lived in Devonshire Cottages, which were on the corner of Shrubland Road and Garrett's Lane, where Shrubland Court flats are now. Now, he returned to Hertfordshire to marry a girl that he knew there, who was living in St Albans, Elizabeth Edmonds, and they came back to Banstead to make their home here. They moved around the corner to Shrubland Road, to Parkview Cottages, a pair of semi-detached villas. Now, I don't know which park it was they were supposed to have a view of, because I can't quite work that out. Maybe it was Banstead Woods somehow. But anyway, all the cottages in that road had names at that time. Those are now numbers 17 and 19, and they lived at number 17. Now, his dad had been apprenticed as a shoe and boot maker, but ended up working as a gardener at the time of Willie's birth. Willie was the first of their 5 children, and he was baptised here at All Saints, as all the children were. And after that, he started to run a coal merchant's business from the family home, supplying all the houses up by the Brighton Road, the hundreds of households that were being built up there at the time. A few years after they moved in, a family opened a shop next door, the Pushmans. They came here in 1909, and they sold everything except coal, the perfect complement for the Nashes next door. Now, although Willie came from a big family, his next door neighbour's son, Jeff, was an only child. Now, he has a bench dedicated to him outside that says Banstead's friend on it, and it seems true because he knew everybody, it seems. And he sort of adopted Willie as his older brother. Willie worked in their shop as an assistant after he'd left school, and Jeff had fond memories of the time spent in the shop with Willie. They had a shared love for the music stars of the day. Jeff remembers being most excited when Willie came home with a new gramophone with a red horn, just like Jeff's grandma's. And they played discs together, sang together, as they weighed out the cheap sugar crystals in the shop as they worked together, the little yellow crystals. Willie was 17 years old when war broke out. But he joined up. He lied about his age. He had to be 19 to serve overseas. So like many of our young men of that time, he claimed to be 19 years and no months old when he went into the recruiting office in August of 1914. He joined up at Kingston on the 25th of August. Now, as part of his duties in the shop, he probably had to do a delivery round, and so he would have been used to handling horses, and he became a driver of a horse wagon in the Army Service Corps. Went out to France just a month later. Now, the Army Service Corps supplied just about everything that the Army in the field needed. They had, at the time of the start of the war, they had hundreds of horse-drawn wagon drivers, and they had a growing number of lorry drivers as well. And by the end of the war, they'd become just this huge organisation that was needed to keep the Army in the field, with thousands of drivers employed. Willie's service records haven't survived, so we don't really know what he was up to for the first half of the war. We do know he came home on leave at one point, and the Pushman family insisted on him standing up by the door so they could mark his height with a pencil to see how much he'd grown while he'd been in the army. Now, in the summer of 1916, we launched the Somme offensive, and we suffered a huge number of casualties in the infantry as a result. So men from all branches of the services were transferred to join the infantry, and that's what happened to Willie. In August of 1916, he joined the infantry, the Northumberland Fusiliers. If he wasn't already on the home front, then he would have come back to join their reserve battalion, who were up in the northeast. And he trained with them for several months. He probably went out in December of 1916, although his records haven't survived. A few of the men who had similar service numbers have. And so we think he probably went out to the Western Front in December of 1916 after 3 or 4 months of training. The Northumberland Fusiliers, one of their battalions, the 12th, suffered a lot of casualties, and so they needed reinforcements. He was probably part of a draft of about 100 men that arrived around the new year. He served with the 12th Battalion in the north of France, and then when they fought at the Battle of Ypres around the town of Bullecourt, bloody Bullecourt, a series of inconclusive actions, attack and counter-attack, for weeks, which cost us an awful lot of casualties for very little gain. They suffered so many casualties in that they were actually merged with another battalion of the Northumberland Fusiliers, the 13th. So they were then known as the 12th, 13th Northumberland Fusiliers, just in order to bring them up to proper fighting strength. They spent the summer of 1917 on the Arras front while the Battle of Passchendaele was raging to the north in Belgium. No unit of the army really escaped Passchendaele, and it wasn't long before they found themselves heading north as well. Fifth Army had been driving that offensive for a month. They'd suffered about 80,000 casualties in a month. They hadn't made many gains beyond the first day. So at the end of August, responsibility was transferred to General Plumer of Second Army, a man with a vision, a new plan. He was going to concentrate his resources more strongly on the points that he was going to attack, bring in more guns, more men. He was going to limit the objectives that he wanted. They were going to still attack on a broad front, but most of that attack would be a diversion, and really it was only a small piece of the ground that he needed to capture. So he wanted to make a series of incremental advances, 1,000 to 2,000 yards at a time, on the strategically important Guerville Plateau, this area of high woody ground that commands the Ypres salient. And a series of 4 or 5 of these attacks, he was eventually going to conquer the whole of this plateau and turn around the corner along the ridge to Passchendaele. And this worked extremely well. Now, he needed good transport infrastructure to do this. He built roads, he built light railways, and he needed to refresh his Second Army, the men in the Second Army, completely every 3 to 4 days. And so lots of battalions that weren't attached to the Second Army in the first place found themselves fighting for the Second Army, as the 12th, 13th Northumberland Fusiliers did. So every 3 or 4 days, they'd carry out a massive attack. The whole of the Second Army would be swapped out. New men would come in, carry out another attack, and then they in turn would go and more people would come in. The Northumberland Fusiliers were to take part in the third of those attacks, the Battle of Bruxelles. They were attacking across the Reutelbeek Valley, so it was on the southern side of the plateau, the far side to Passchendaele. It had proved extremely difficult for the British to make any headway on that side of the plateau. There was a large concentration of German guns there. There were 3 defensive lines that converged in that area, a lot of men, a lot of pillboxes, and very difficult terrain because the side of this plateau was cut by these streams who had been their courses completely destroyed by shell fire. They became these impenetrable morasses. So they were attacking through one of these swamps, as they called them, to a ridge beyond, which was dotted with pillboxes, which had commanded the valley, had a very good field of fire. As you can imagine, casualties were pretty high as the men advanced slowly towards them. And Willie was probably wounded in that action, either that action or very soon afterwards. And he would have come home or gone to the hospital in France for treatment. We don't know when he rejoined them, but they left the front at Passchendaele soon after that. Now, they went down to the Somme. The battle had finished long ago. The British had advanced a considerable distance after the Germans had retired to the Hindenburg line. And we were holding positions west of the Somme, about 10 miles west of the river. And the Northumberland Fusiliers were stationed on that all through the winter of 17, 18, and January and February, holding the line and also doing lots of works on the defensive lines that were there. The positions being fairly new, the British still needed an awful lot of work to make them secure, so a lot of time was spent improving the fortifications there. But it was quiet, even if it was cold, so it must have made a pleasant change for many of those men after the muddy hell of Passchendaele. On the 21st of March, the Germans attacked on that front, started their spring offensive. They were using new tactics. Elite troops, the stormtroopers, led the assault following a 5-hour hurricane bombardment that virtually destroyed the front line. These stormtroopers, they find the weak spots in the British line, exploit them, bypass the centres of resistance, which the British had built in as a series of redoubts into their line. What looked like strong points on paper actually became weak points because the gaps between them were almost completely undefended. And these redoubts, these fortifications, were not close enough to each other to mutually support each other. So each one of them could be bypassed by the first troops and then surrounded and laid siege to by troops that followed up. It was a disaster for the British. Fifth Army lost very heavily. They'd been very thinly stretched, they were very vulnerable. They lost very heavily and they started pell-mell fighting retreat. Now the Northumberland Fusiliers were in the front line on that day, and they lost lost a lot of men. In fact, it was the start of a really, really bad run of luck for them. They were always in the wrong place at the wrong time from that day afterwards. They lost hundreds of men in that engagement, and they would go on to suffer over 100% casualties in the next 2 months. The entire battalion personnel was almost completely changed. After that retreat, their bad luck continued. They were sent to a quiet spot of the line to rest, up on the French-Belgian border. It happened to be the point where the Germans' second spring offensive, the blow was struck. And again, they lost very heavily. And Willie was wounded again in one of the actions that they fought in April. He rejoined his battalion just as they transferred to yet another quiet sector, which was supposed to be a rest spot, and which happened to be the spot where the Germans' third spring offensive was about to be delivered. These 12 tired-out divisions that were resting were holding a strategically important area of high ground called the Chemin hills. It was the last really big bit of terrain before the way was opened to Paris, so it was vital that it was held. It was on the River Aisne. There was a river, and then running alongside of it was a canal, and then other canals linked the River Aisne with the River Marne. And when these canals all met up, sort of made a corner in the village of Berry-au-Bac. And the Northumberland Fusiliers were holding somewhere around the apex of that corner at the end of May. It had been really, really quiet. It had been a nice place to be. It was hot weather. The countryside was blooming. It wasn't this shell-ravaged crazy state they'd been used to previously. It was shaping up to be some kind of a rest cure, but the Germans were noted to be unusually quiet. And on the 25th of May, 2 prisoners were taken who gave the game away. There was an attack coming on the 27th. They said they gave at the time of the attack away. It was coming at 1 in the morning on the 27th. It took a little while for that information to filter through. The Northumberland Fusiliers were in the front line on the 26th, when at 11 p.m. that day they received a warning that there was going to be an attack at 1 a.m. and they needed to stand to, which they did. They manned battle stations. At 1 a.m. the German bombardment opened up. Gas shells mostly at first. They created this huge heavy cloud of gas vapour that smothered the entire battlefield. Soon shrapnel and high explosive shells were falling too. Now, the French commander of all the British troops had made a tactical mistake by putting too many men in the front line. And in other stretches of the line, that bombardment virtually wiped out the front line battalions, leaving very little troops behind them. It wasn't quite that case where the Northumberland Fusiliers were. Most of the shells seemed to fall behind them, but they were isolated, they were tracked. And when the German infantry assault hit them just a couple of hours later, they folded very, very quickly indeed. Their right flank was driven in. The Germans were straight into battalion HQ, killing and capturing a number of their officers. And they started to fall back in something of a disarray. The 3 companies that were in the front line for them had been lost. The reserve company and a few survivors from battalion HQ started to make their way backwards in a fighting retreat. The division on their left had been driven in completely, driving a wedge between Willie Nash and the man we commemorated yesterday, Mark Farrow. And so the battalion were not in touch with any troops, any British troops on the left side. The only troops they were in touch with there were Germans. They fought a series of rearguard, confused fights until they took up a new defensive position. They went from there to 3 or 4 further defensive positions as they fell back before this onslaught the Germans had unleashed. At some point, 100 years ago today, in that fight, Willie Nash lost his life. Now, his body was never found, and he was commemorated, or he's commemorated on the Soissons memorial to the missing. He's also commemorated here in the village on the Banstead Wall Memorial, on the churchyard wall memorial, on the panels in the memorial chapel, and in the memorial book, and in Jeff Bushman's memoirs, probably the most affecting remembrance of him. He was 20 years old.
Let us remember before God and commend to his mercy and keeping those who have died for their country in war. In particular, we pray for Willie Nash. We can again remember Mark, whom we commemorated yesterday. Perhaps we could add in George Powell, who was also a Shrodland roadman, we offer them their souls up to the gracious keeping of our Lord. And we treasure the memory and all those who have lived and died in the service of mankind. Most gracious God and Father, in whose will is our peace, turn our hearts and the hearts of all men to yourself, that by the power of your Spirit, the peace which is founded on righteousness may be established throughout the world, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. We pray for the victims of war, not only those who died in the First and the Second World War, but those who have died in subsequent wars. O God our Father, we bring to you in our prayers those who suffer in body, mind, as a result of the war, or because of fear and suspicion that separate nation from nation, race from race, and man from man. We also pray for all refugees, for those who have lost wife or husband, children or parents, livelihood, security, or home. Have mercy upon them, O God, and prosper all who seek to help them in their need, for the sake of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Let us say the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, and glory, forever and ever. Amen.
When you go home, tell them of us and say, for their tomorrow we gave our today.
And thank you very much for attending this.